I am back today discussing the fighting rifle. This is the second video of a multi-part series where we discuss fighting handguns, fighting rifles, fighting shotguns, and a few other different options. And we've started with the fighting handgun. If you missed that video, I was taking requests for the second video in the series, and overwhelmingly it was to discuss the fighting rifle. We're going to be talking about different caliber options for the fighting rifle, as well as a wide variety of rifles that I would personally recommend to utilize as a fighting rifle. The definition of a fighting rifle, or at least the definition for the purposes of this particular video, ways to save, and good opportunities to grab something if you're new in this category. One of the first things I want to discuss is the sponsor of today's video, Target Sports USA, and their Ammo Plus membership service. If you're looking for ammo for any of your fighting rifles, definitely sign up for their Ammo Plus membership service because you get free shipping and 8% discounts across the board with no order minimums. So if you just want to grab a box or two of 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, save a little bit of money and get free shipping on just individual boxes, you can sign up and save. Also, if you sign up by utilizing the link on my campsite page, you actually get something free with your first order. But let's dig into what a fighting rifle is. In my opinion, and specifically for this video, a fighting rifle is a rifle that you're going to be utilizing to defend your life with. Not necessarily just for personal defense. Something in the field. It will see abuse. It will see the elements. And it will be put to the test when it comes to how good it can run, dirty, or in adverse conditions. And so that's what we're going to be discussing here. Other things that come along with fighting rifles is also parts interchangeability, track record and history, and the availability of the ammunition and components if you needed to run it beyond what you were carrying in or had available. How easy it is to access other components, like again, ammo or different parts. Now, one of the first things I want to discuss are the two major platforms that come to mind for a fighting rifle, at least in North America anyways, the AK-47 and the AR-15. Now, both of these are semi-automatic rifles, and both of them are mag-fed options. And that is one of the first things I would recommend for a fighting rifle in North America. Semi-auto, mag-fed. Those are like the best requirements, or the first two requirements right off the bat. Now, there's a lot of bolt action and internal box mags, but they're almost irrelevant in 2024 when it comes to some of the more modern options. Now, there's definitely practical purposes, and there actually may be a video in the future about fighting bolt guns. For practicality of this video, we're going to do semi-auto mag-fed designs. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is the fact that there's a wide variety of ARs and AKs on the market, chambered in a ton of different platforms, including something like a scaled-up AR-15, which is called the AR-10, chambered in 308. So let's discuss the calibers before we go into individual platforms, since in 2024 you can buy an AK in 7.62x39, 5.56 and 5.45x39, and you can buy an AR in 5.56, 7.62x39, and 300 blackout, and a ton of other calibers. So let's discuss those first. Now, The three I'm going to recommend for a fighting rifle, and please argue with me in the comments section below. Like, this is not an end-all be-all video where I'm telling you guys what to do. I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and I had a lot of great points in the fighting handgun video. Some people were arguing with me, and it was great because I got to see different people's perspectives, and they made a lot of great points. So the comment section is going to be a great place to go to get additional information, but just filter out some of the more interesting comments. There's some good ones down there, but let's start off with the caliber selection. Now, the three main that I'm going to talk about is the 5.56 or 223 cartridge, which is commonly found in the AR-15 platform, the 7.62x39, which is commonly found in the AK platform, and the 308, which is commonly found in the AR-10 platform or M1A, something to that effect. Now, when we're talking about ballistic performance, these two are going to be intermediate cartridges. Pushing them out to 600 yards is probably about the max you're going to do. And I know there's going to be a guy, just like 22 man, who's going to be able to knock out a Coke can at 800 yards with 22. But for all practical purposes, we're going to call these about 500 to 600 yard maximum cartridges. And the 308 is going to be out to about 1,000 effective range. Again, there's going to be guys that can take it further, and there's going to be guys who just can't shoot 1,000 with anything. So it's all about training and your platform, but that's kind of roughly what we're discussing. So if you're going to be somewhere like me in the North Carolina foothills or the mountains, an intermediate cartridge is about all you're going to need because you're not taking those long flat shots. If you're out west, a fighting rifle may be like 308 minimum because you're going to be taking such far shots. These will just fall short. So it's definitely area dependent, and that's one of the first things I want to mention. Also, if you're talking about really close-up stuff, maybe CQB inside a city or something like that, the 308 just maybe too much recoil impulse back on the shooter, and too large of a platform to wield effectively. So this may weed out the 308 for, again, CQB or that close-up engagement. Now, 7.62x39 and 5.56 is going to be an argument for another day, but these are both good cartridges. Let's hit the highlights of both of them really quickly. One, the 5.56 is ever prevalent. There is a ton of 5.56 factories in the US. It's a NATO spec round, so you may find some lying around. It's reasonably priced at right at about 40 to 50 cents right now. And the fact that you can grab this in brass, steel, hunting calibers, hollow points, ballistic tip, precision rounds, and bulk ammunition make this great. Now, 7.62x39 was very popular because it's a hard-hitting 30 cal round to knock out large game like deer up close. Just a very reliable design when it's inside the AK-47, and it was super cheap. And I say was because with the ammo limitations on import permits being restricted recently, 7.62x39 for steel junk ammo is now more or about the same price as premium brass 5.56. So for the purposes of this video and intermediate cartridges, I am kind of weeding out that 7.62x39 because you just can't find it everywhere. If you go into your local shop, you're going to find very limited boxes of 7.62x39, but you are going to find 5.56. So for me personally, these are the two cartridges I'm currently recommending for a fighting rifle. Again, 308 if you're going to be out west taking 1,000-yard shots, and 5.56 if you're going to be doing CQB and 500-600 yards and infighting. Those are the two rounds I would consider. Again, knocking this out, I know I'm going to hear a lot of hate in the comments section, but I want to hear your thoughts. So once we've selected these two cartridges, what are our options for the actual fighting rifles? And what are the reliability and durability of these down at the range? I do want to start with the AK-47 because it is known as a reliable rifle. Now, some of the positives of the AK is the fact that, again, in 2024, you can get these easily chambered in 5.56 from a wide variety of companies, so it's not going to knock the AK out of the park simply because I'm not necessarily recommending the 7.62x39 right now. The cool thing about the AK is a lot of the modern options do have side optics mounts to mount optics to, but it gets a little bit more cumbersome and awkward than mounting an optic to an AR-15. Now, the AK is known for the reliability, and as you saw in the intro of this video, I've put them to the torture testing max on the channel, dropping them, running them over with trucks, and filling them with mud, and they do work incredibly well, but will still have their malfunctions when pushed to the limits and the actions are filled with grit. Now, they do run better than a lot of other platforms out there, and that's why they're insanely reliable, but I have found them slightly less accurate than their AR counterpoints, but not enough to make a difference. A lot of these kind of ideas floating around that the AK is this indestructible monster that can't be stopped no matter what, I mean, that is very true in the sense of they're very reliable, but I have seen just some slight stoppages in the AK when we were doing some mud tests where we had to disassemble them, rinse them out, put them back together, and drop oil to get them running, same as the AR platform, which we'll talk about in a second. And then some people say they're completely inaccurate, whereas I've shot these out to about 200 yards with really no functional or practical accuracy issues as long as it's built right and you have solid optics mounted to the side with a solid optics mount. So the AK is definitely a great option. One downfall, though, in North America is AKs are not as easy to replace components on. They're not as easy to find magazines, especially 5.56 mags, and the parts aren't as readily available and easy to change out like its brother or its competitor, the AR-15 platform. So therefore, I'm not necessarily recommending this as my favorite fighting rifle, but it is definitely a great option. And if you're an AK guy that has spare parts on hand and runs them really well, and that's good for you, I can definitely recommend it, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards the AR for my personal situation. Now, again, we've already discussed the two calibers, but if we're going to be looking at the AR-10, it's going to be chambered in the 308, or the AR-15 chambered in the 5.56. Now, again, depending on where you're located, it depends on your cartridge, so we're just going to discuss the 5.56 because personally I'm in the North Carolina foothills. Now, let's look at this AR. You can see how messed up it looks because sorry, I'm mumbling my words here. That is because this has been dropped from a 40-foot shooting tower. It's been run over with a truck. It's been dropped on rocks. It's been shot with a 12-gauge shotgun numerous times. I mean, this thing has been abused and beat up, and it is still holding strong. And both of these are going to handle most of the abuse you can possibly throw at a rifle in the field. It's also runs really clean and easy to disassemble and maintain in the field with no tools. Very similar to the AK for maintenance. So it's great if it does get a little bit gummed up. You can take it down and rinse it off. Now, I've seen the accuracy potential of the AR platform well below under an inch at 100 yards in most platforms nowadays in 2024. So if you're looking for an accurate tack driver that's also very reliable and durable, as you can see here being all beat up and abused, the AR platform is a little bit better option in my opinion. To mount the optics on the AR is a little bit easier in my opinion. To mount a light or a laser aiming module or backup irons is definitely a little bit easier on the AR than the AK because of the M-LOK rail systems that are now on a lot of the AR platforms, so I would recommend that. Now, when it comes to a fighting rifle, I absolutely recommend putting on a light, which is, again, a little bit easier on most ARs than it is AKs. Now, again, PSA is offering a ton of AKs with M-LOK rail systems, J-Max docks, and a ton of other options, so it's definitely not impossible. And actually, if you were going to go with an AK, a fighting AK, I would highly recommend taking a look at Palmetto State Armory because of all of their options and because we actually torture tested this PSAK and it ran flawlessly, other than, again, a few little hiccups here and there when we pushed them to extreme limits, but all AKs are going to run into something like that. So it's a good option there, though. There was a few instances where we were actually searching the land after something was stolen from the range, and we have a wide area that we were searching, and we found an abandoned trailer, like a box truck on the land itself that was been there for a while. And when I was looking in there to see what was going on, it was nice to have a light mounted to the rifle to kind of clear that trailer out. Even in the middle of the day, you'll sometimes find uses for a light, so that is something that's key on a fighting rifle. The next thing that I want to discuss on this AR platform is the fact that the parts are widely available and easy to get. When it comes to the parts breakages on an AR, it's very compartmentalized. When you're talking about the upper receiver, the things that I've seen personally fail on an AR would be the extractor springs or extractor itself, or something with the bolt inside the carrier, which is a small component you can stick in your plate carrier that costs about 40 bucks. It can be swapped out with almost no tools in about a minute if you're quick. Even less sometimes for those guys who do it all the time. It's very easy swap out for those components. The other thing on the AR is mags are plentiful, they're easy to find, they're everywhere, and they're a little bit cheaper and more reliable than I would say an AK556 magazine, just because people have been making them in wide, like Magpul for a very long time. They just work out great. 556 ammo is also plentiful like we discussed earlier. And you can carry a little bit more when you're talking about weight versus 7.62 by 39 or even 308. You can carry a lot more 5.56 than you can these other cartridges, especially too if you're carrying them in boxes of ammo inside like a pack to reload at a later date, or ammo cans inside a car. You can just get more 5.56 in a smaller space than you can 308 or 7.62 by 39. So I know there was a lot of information in this video discussing fighting rifles, and there's probably a lot of other options out there on the market. But in today's day and age, in 2024, I believe the AR is going to be a great option, as well as a lot of the AKs chambered in 5.56 or 7.62 by 39 if you can find that extra ammo. One thing I want to note is there's definitely a difference between an entry-level AR and a more premium AR, and we're going to talk about some of those differences right now before we end the video. And one is I would highly recommend a solid free-floating M-LOK rail assembly that locks up very good. Now, a lot of companies like Palmetto State Armory have a lot of new entry-level rail systems that are blowing me away at the quality and performance. The M-LOK rail is holding up really good, and the attachment to the upper is great, allowing you to mount all of those accessories like we talked about earlier. The next thing I want to discuss is the barrel quality, and a lot of them utilize a mid-length or carbine length gas system. I recommend the mid-length gas system because it gives you enough gas to run on a 16-inch barrel, and it's not a ton of recoil back on the shooter to help stabilize and make quick shots. So a nice 16-inch gun with a mid-length gas system is a good option. Now, there's also a lot of options on the market today with pinned gas blocks. If you're looking for a fighting rifle, the bare minimum would be a dimpled barrel, which meaning they actually dimple the barrel right where the gas block attaches and then set those screws into there. Now that's a bare minimum using really good thread locker. But there's a lot of companies out there like Geissele and Palmetto State Armory running Geissele stuff that pin their gas blocks in place, and that's a great option. And those builds are not very expensive compared to other options on the market. Prices have really come down lately. The other thing I recommend on some type of fighting AR would be a solid red dot. I've done so many red dot tests in the past, or LPVO tests in the past, as well as backup iron sights in case something goes down. And when we're talking about triggers on a fighting rifle, there are so many great triggers on the market today, but just utilizing a standard mil-spec solid trigger has been great for me, especially in some of those torture tests, because when we are cleaning them out in the field, they're a little bit easier to clean out, a little bit easier to pop out than some of the cartridge triggers that may have set screws to hold them in place or be a little bit more finicky when dirt gets inside the cartridge itself. So I would recommend just running a standard mil-spec trigger, or when it comes to the AK trigger, I like the standard AK triggers that PSA comes with, or the ALG triggers that runs in the AK. So I hope you guys liked the video. I hope it gives you an overview of a fighting rifle. I know this was kind of an eclectic video with a bunch of information, yet trying to keep it short enough to where you guys could easily digest it in one sitting without clicking away. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. What would you choose? I personally would choose a nice AR-15 with a solid optic, a solid light, and a very good sling. And I think you're good to go when you stock up on mags and ammo. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.